Welcome, folks, to another episode of That Anita Live. I'm Anita, your host, where we offer emotional healing for you to live a happier life. I am over the roof excited about this episode because this is a conversation that I have wanted to have for years. The person that I have with me today in studio is I call her Teflon tough. This is a sister that has a lesson for each of us to learn and how to move through the emotional traumas of life. In studio with me is none other than Miss Mildred Muhammad. Welcome, Mildred.
How you doing, Anita?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Thank you for coming to have this conversation with me today.
Thank you for having me.
You know, emotional violence, emotional trauma is something that is usually dismissed under the realm of domestic violence. Why do you feel that is?
Because we are a visual people, if I don't see your pain, then your pain do not exist. That's why 80% of victims who suffer as victims of domestic violence don't have scars, and it's difficult for people to connect with them.
The National Coalition Against Domestic Violence reports that on a typical day, they get about 20,000 calls regarding domestic violence issues. Does that seem high, off the Richters, or is that?
It's high, but it's even higher because you're not counting the people that don't call.
Because a lot of cases don't get reported.
They're reported, but they're not taken seriously. They try to leave, but someone will talk them into staying.
So more on a personal level,
Right.
as to why it's not. Now, in your personal story, because generally people think that, why did she stay? Why didn't she leave? How did they end up together? They don't realize that, you know, the first date, you don't go home with a black eye, or the second date, you don't go home with a broken arm, that it
Right.
does start in very genuine, sincere, and loving relationships. How did your relationship start out?
Can I say just one thing before I go to that? It's easy to blame the victim. It's harder to confront the abuser. So it's easy to say, why did you stay? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? But why don't you ask the abuser, why do you abuse? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? Because you're just as afraid of the abuser as the victim is. You don't understand how clever an abuser is. And so those questions continue to mount, which automatically turns into victim blaming. So John and I, we met. I was at a store. He was coming out of the store. I was with my girlfriend, and I asked her, who was that? And she said, oh, that's just John. He came over to the car and asked me out on a date. So we went over to, this was in Baton Rouge. So we went over to the lake, and he asked me, was I seeing anybody? I said, no. He said, well, you are now.
Because I understand he was very jovial. He was like the life of the party back then.
He was the life of the party. Everybody wanted to be around him. He really knew how to calm the room. He was just a fun person to be around.
So you dated. Did you have the typical white dress?
I did. When we was at Fort Lewis, I had the white dress, and he was on his dress blues because he was in the military, and we was married in a church. And so it was great.
Love and bliss.
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
So at what point did things begin to turn?
When he came back from Desert Storm, and he was only there for 3 months. He left in December. He came back in March 3rd. And when he came back, he was not the same person, but that happens a lot to soldiers that go to a war zone and come back. He didn't want to have those conversations we used to have. He no longer wanted to express his emotions. He didn't want anybody to know how he was feeling, just completely shut down. And the only person that he would open up to was our son. So when he came home from work, then he would go right for John, little John, that's what we called him. And he would be that person that I remembered. But as soon as John went to sleep, then that's...
So he never shared any of the experiences that happened to him during that 3-month period?
Not at that time, no ma'am.
Wow.
So he would sit over in the corner and rock back and forth. And I said, honey, you okay? He said, I'm good. I said, okay, there's nothing I can do? No, good.
When did it begin to turn from him isolating himself and being disassociative to being more emotionally abusive?
Well, that happened once we moved back to the United States. At that point, we had 2 children, and we were at Fort Ord in California before they closed. And he would be very angry with me for no reason. He started, if I would express, I really do like this jacket, I think I'm gonna put it in the closet. The next day, that jacket was gone. I said, you seen my jacket? No, I don't know where it is. He would throw away dishes enough just for he and I. So it would be 2 plates, 2 saucers, 2 bowls, 2 forks, 2 knives. And so the children, they were still in bottles. So I said, well, what happened to the dishes? Oh, they just, I don't know, they broke. So every time I bought a pair of dishes, a set of dishes, they would end up broken. If I buy knives, then all the knives will be gone except for 2 steak knives and 2 butter knives. So what's happening to this, to our stuff? I don't know. So it was subtle like that.
So what was the breaking point for you where you said, you know what, this is it, I'm out of here, I'm filing for divorce?
Well, he said, you have become my enemy, and as my enemy, I will kill you. That was it. I didn't have to wait around to see what he was going to do or how he was going to do it. John was a man of his word. He said what he meant what he said. He was a demolition expert shot, hand-to-hand combat expert. He would measure how fast the dew would dry on the grass at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
He was very detailed and had a plan for everything. So I knew that I was going to die, and he would put me somewhere where no one would be able to find me. I filed for a divorce, however, and I requested a restraining order and got it, but we still had to have visitation for the children. And we had someone to come over and pick up the children, take them to him for that weekend, and then come back every other weekend. So the first weekend that went fine. Second weekend was my mom's birthday. She wanted to go to Country Buffet for her birthday. He was supposed to have them back that Sunday afternoon. He had them Friday to Sunday, and he didn't bring them back. And they were gone.
And then how long was it before you saw them again?
18 months.
And what assistance did you try to seek during that time period?
Every kind. I called the police. They said, because you didn't have a parenting plan, he has just as much a right to the children as you do, so there's nothing we can do. We just call it custodial interference. I tried going to friends who were around at the time, but he poisoned the well, and he had them thinking that I was the bad one. So they said, John told us you was gonna come and say these things about him, so at least you just get to cook for one. Snap out of it. Go back to work. You're young, you'll have more children. Why are you tripping? Get over it. I shut completely down, and come to find out, those very people who were saying that knew where my children were and didn't tell me.
The manipulation, the blaming, the shifting.
They blamed me for everything.
That, though, very textbook when it comes to emotional abuse versus physical abuse, because that's the shift. The manipulation is to make the victim look like the perpetrator.
Right, and he did a very good job at that, because they believed everything he said. every word he said, they believed. Every word.
Why is it you feel that, or think, why is it
Okay.
that people will reveal the location of the victim, or that people will take the side of the perpetrator? Why are they so easy to manipulate?
Because they don't want to believe that the person in front of them as the abuser is as bad as the victim says. So you're just being emotional. You need to just snap out of it. What's wrong with you? You gotta toughen up, girl, you know? But you're just too thin-skinned. So what, he said something to you, you know, sticks and stones may break my bones, get over it.
Yeah.
But words do hurt.
Yes.
And words do cut. And words can cause someone to commit suicide, and words can put you in a state where you will never get out.
The effects of emotional abuse can be very devastating.
Yes, it can.
18 months before you got your kids back, how did you finally get them back?
I was in Maryland. I got a call from the executive director of the shelter I was living in Washington State. She said, Millie, I think we found your children. Millie is my safe name. And she said, you need to fax all your paperwork to Detective McCarthy in Bellingham, Washington, and follow up with a phone call, because we didn't have cell phones back then like we do now. We had pagers and call after you fax.
You had that one phone on the wall on the desk that you had to go over and dial that number on.
Right, and that's what I had to do. So he received my paperwork. He said, well, Miss Muhammad, you know, we're on the border of Canada, and if they get across the border, you'll never see your children again. I said, sir, I appreciate that information, but if you could please just go get my children, I would appreciate that too. So August the 31st.
Hold on. Now, sister to sister.
Yes, ma'am.
Woman to woman. How is it that you keep your cool and answer these questions
I have no idea.
the way you do?
My mother told me that when I was little, 7 or 8, I was coming out of the kitchen and all of them were sitting in the living room, and I said very calmly, Mama, the kitchen on fire. And I walked out and they said they saw the smoke.
And you laughing because you know just everybody else would have been yelling and screaming.
I don't know why I take the calm side
Yes.
of being angry. I know when I'm
Yes.
angry, most people yell, I get quiet. So the angrier I am, the quieter I am. I'm the reverse. So that's just how, because when you're emotional, you can't think. You know, you can't rationalize what's going on if you're emotional. So you got to separate your emotions from the actual facts and deal with what's in front of you. And that's what I had to do. I didn't have time to be emotional. I didn't have time to cry, I didn't have time for that. Time was of the essence for me. I didn't have time for that. That came later. Right now, I need to get to my children. I didn't have time for that. Sorry, I didn't.
We'll be right back to hear the rest of this amazing story. Again, our topic is emotional abuse. And as you can see, I have someone here with me who is Teflon tough and knows how to handle it in the worst situation. We'll be right back. Never miss a moment. Subscribe to my YouTube channel today at thatanitalive.com/YouTube. And we're back to That Anita Live. Again, I'm Anita, your host, and I'm sitting here with the legendary Teflon tough, unemotional Mildred Muhammad,
Fact-driven.
teaching us how to handle the toughest of emotional situations. When we went to break, the detective had called you, made a comment to you that you responded to with the utmost calmness. And I think all of the rest of us would have had some nice 5, 7, and maybe 11 letter words for him to say that, well, you know, if they cross the border, you're never going to see them again.
Okay, and that was a fact. So he's giving me information. Why would I get upset with him?
Okay, you know what? You know what? You know what? Let's move on to the next part, because we're not going to agree. We not.
Okay.
We not going to see that.
Okay. Okay.
And I think everybody out there would feel the same way.
I'm just saying, when you're too emotionally expressive of your situation, you're wasting time to get to the next step, to what you need to do to resolve the issue.
So
that's it.
What was the next step?
The next step was they went to the school to pick up the children because they were under assumed names. So when they approached the girls, they were scared, and they asked them, "What are your names?" And they were scared. My daughter said, Selena. She said, no, I mean Teresa. So he named them Teresa and Thelma, right? So once they said, well, your mom is looking for you, so we need to know your real names. And that's when they said Taliba and Selena. Okay, so he took them, and then my son, he didn't want to go. So he named him John Thomas instead of just John Williams. So I had to fly back to Washington State for an emergency custody hearing. And once we got to the courthouse, the judge said, we're here today to decide who gets custody of the children. John said, Your Honor, she already knew where those children were. Why are we here? He said, you have to go through the same process she went through. And since her paperwork was done pro se, which meant I did it myself, and it is in perfect order, then she would get custody of the children. So they gave him a document he needed to sign. He signed it and flipped it back to the court. Case dismissed. So we go out into the hallway. We wait for John to leave the courtroom first. So we're standing in like a triangle. I'm facing this way. Advocate is here. I'm looking at my attorney. Courtroom door is here. Hallway behind me. So she's calling to find out where my children are. All of a sudden I feel a presence. I turn and it's John. I take off down the hallway. My attorney and advocate looked at John, they looked at me, and they ran too. So we all ran down the hallway.
She knows him better than we do, so if she wanted it, we need to get the one. See?
I ran. And we looked around the hallway, down the hall. He put his hand on the courtroom door, looked at me and said, gotcha. My attorney said, oh, hell no. You leaving out of here tonight. So we left there, found the children at the social services, came back to the YWCA, called my mom and told her that I got the children. But we waited until it was dark so we could leave at night. So we went in the basement of the Y, around the swimming pool, through the clothing closet. There's a red door. We open the door. There's a car waiting. We get in the car. Drive us to SeaTac, 45 minutes one way. Security came to the car, got us from the car, and took us to their security office. When the pilot was ready, he radioed security. They escorted us from the security office onto the plane. We are landing at BWI September 5th.
Now that is a safety plan. That is a safety plan.
And we came back here to live with my sister, and we went into hiding.
Hold on. So how does one put together a safety plan?
Well, that includes several different things. Say you are being abused. First of all, you have to have friends and family who are willing, and I do mean willing, to listen to you and understand that you are in an abusive relationship without turning their backs on you in case you decide to go back. Because that's your choice. That is your choice.
Okay, next step.
So then it includes befriending a neighbor, where if I flick my lights on, then I need you to call 911. No one should ever put themselves in harm's way trying to help their friend or family member.
Okay.
Okay, and that's So to put it together, I have a book called Planning My Escape on my website. It's 8 steps. It deals with 8 different sections of your life, from your work to if you are involved in substance abuse, the things you need to do. You have to still contact a friend, as I stated earlier, but the items in step 8 are items that are checked that you need to take with you in case you want to start your life over. The other ones that are not checked, you can get those later. Most times when victims are trying to leave, the abuser will say, why don't you meet me so we can talk about what we need to do? John did that to me. I said, well, I don't think that would be a good idea. He said, so you're listening to your cronies, huh? You don't want to come and see me? I said, no, I don't. There have been several incidences where victims have gone with the abuser thinking that they're going to have this conversation, and then they end up killing them.
The latest one that I can think of was the young lady in Chicago that wanted to return an engagement ring, and her intimate partner came over for her to return the ring, and it turned out to be fatal. He was not in agreement with the separation.
Right.
And so,
well, just like the one in California where the husband went to the school. Okay, so my understanding is she didn't tell the school that they were separated or any issues that was going on. So I'm sure that has changed now.
But I mean, I can understand, not that I agree, but I can understand her not saying anything because
she didn't want anybody in her business.
Well, she didn't want to lose her job.
Well, that too. But again, it was her decision how she chose to handle it. And she felt that the way she handled it, by leaving, being in a safe place with her children, continuing on to work, was a safe plan for her to work.
Okay. In your story, back to your story, let's fast forward to October 2002.
Okay.
And ATF knocks on your door.
October 23rd.
You open the door and
they say, are you Mildred Muhammad? I say, nah.
Right.
She ain't here.
I got it. African American, I got it.
She ain't here.
Wrong house.
So we looking for her because we need to ask her some questions about John Allen Muhammad. I said, okay, that's me. So why are you asking me about John? As soon as they mentioned his name, my palms began sweating. So when was the last time you talked to him? I said, I haven't. When was the last time you seen him? I said, September 2001 at an emergency custody hearing. Well, and you haven't heard from him since? No, sir. Well, we need for you to come down to the police station. I said, I'm not going nowhere with you. Well, I need to go. I'm not going.
Right.
But we need for you to answer some questions. I'm not going with you. Well, we need for you to verify who we're talking about. I say, look, I'm not going with you because I believe you have John at your police station. And I've been trying to tell y'all, this man is trying to kill me. So if I come down there, he's gonna kill me. I said, no, he's not. We don't have him, Miss Muhammad. We just need for you to answer some questions. That's all. I said, okay. So told my children, I'm going to the police station. I'll be right back. I get to the police station, and this agent that I contacted earlier to tell him that my children were kidnapped and can they help me to find them, he was there. And he said, well, I said, what are you doing here? He said, I'm here investigating some homicides. I said, oh, okay. So they take me into the interrogation room. I have one long table, 2 agents on this side. I'm over here and an agent is next to me. And they said, so Ms. Muhammad, when was the last time you saw John Allen Muhammad? I said, September 2001 in an emergency custody hearing. They said, well, have you heard of any shootings anywhere else? No. Well, we'd like for you to listen to a CD. It was, tell us if you recognize the voice. So it was a man with an accent. So do you recognize this voice? I say, no, sir, I don't recognize the voice. I said, we need for you to look at this letter. Tell us if you recognize the handwriting. It was the letter that was posted to the tree. Do you recognize this handwriting? I say, no, sir. I don't recognize the handwriting. So the agent was walking back and forth in the room. He stopped. He was on his cell phone. He stopped. He said, look, Miss Muhammad, we're going to just have to tell you. We're going to name your ex-husband as the sniper. I said, what? John? My head hit the table. They said, well, do you think he would do something like this? I raised my head. I said, well, you? They said, well, why would you think that? I said, because we were watching a movie, and I don't remember the name of it, but he said, I could take a small city, terrorize it. They would think it would be a group of people, and it would only be me. I asked him why would he do something like that, and he changed the subject. They said, well, Miss Muhammad, didn't you know you were the target? Well, no, why would I think that? Well, there was a man that was shot 6 times down the street from you. There was another man that was shot in the abdomen 2 miles from you. Miss Muhammad, you were the target. Would you like to go into protective custody? I said, you gotta ask me that?
Exactly.
Well, yes, ma'am, because some people don't want to go. Okay, have you caught him yet? No, ma'am. Do you know where he is? No, ma'am. And you still have to ask me. Yes, ma'am. Yes, I want to go into protective custody, but we have to go get my children and my family. So we leave there, go to the house. My son is the first person I see, but I see on the TV that they're digging up that tree in the backyard in Tacoma. Pull him in the bathroom. I say, honey, they're gonna name your dad as the sniper. He starts melting to the floor. I say, but you can't break down right now. Because we got to go. Pull them up, come on. Go out the bathroom, go downstairs to my daughters. They're laying on the bed writing. I said, they're gonna name your dad as the sniper. They start crying. Nope, no, you can't cry right now. We gotta pack some stuff and we got to go. So they crying and packing. My sister come downstairs, her and her husband. I said, we gotta pack, we gotta go. I'll tell you later, we gotta pack, we gotta go, we gotta go. So we get in the car and we're leaving, and as we're leaving, the media is coming in.
Amazing, right? How did Mildred manage to stay so calm in such emotionally distressing situations? In part 1, she taught us how to compartmentalize our feelings and deal with the facts now and our emotions later. Stay tuned for part 2, where we learn techniques to help us heal after the storm. How did Mildred and her children emotionally heal after John's execution? All right here on That Anita Live in part 2. Don't miss it.